Christine. Thank you and good morning. What I want to do is provide a little bit of context about Northwood University, as well as how we're approaching the CBE opportunity. To let you know, we are not offering anything CBE-wise yet at this point. So we are still working through that process and that opportunity. So what I want to share with you is try and give you an understanding of Northwood University and why we're approaching the opportunity as we are, okay? At any point you have questions, please stop me and let's answer them at that point in time. 3 questions that I thought about when I first started to think about CBE in Northwood University. The first one was pretty basic. Where would competency-based education fit within Northwood University? We started our online programming. I led that initiative back in 1996. At that time, the chancellor and president of our system, direct quote to me, Kevin, we think online education is a fad, but if you can find out how to finance it, get it up and going, go ahead and do that, okay? So at that time, we used, I don't know how many of you might remember, eCollege as our platform provider back then because we didn't have the resources internally, etc. And that. And I liken this opportunity to that initial online opportunity as well. So first question I asked. Second question was then, for Northwood University, what is our career and degree pathways? As an institution, as a system, what are those? We hear it all the time. We see billboards relating to career and degree pathways, but what does that mean for Northwood University? Third, how would I present our career and degree pathways, including CBE, to all of our partners? Now, when I talk partners, I'm talking faculty, staff, business, industry, community colleges, etc. Students. How would I show and present all the opportunities that we have? Also, I took on a role this summer as VP of our corporate and executive education programming for our system. And that's the perspective I've been approaching CBE from, okay? So I wanted to share that with you also because some of the things I may share, you may, well, why, that's interesting why you're doing that. I'm bringing this from a corporate perspective. Not that it doesn't tie in to our general delivery in that. But that's the context that I wanted to set with you and share. Also want to provide a little bit of context then about Northwood University. We were founded in 1959 as a special purpose institution. We are a 4-year, not-for-profit. We take no federal or state funding at all. So some of the state and federal grant opportunities, we want to be involved in the conversation and these types of events, but we're not looking for the money or the resource. Not that we don't need it, okay? Let's not kid ourselves, but that's just part of our institutional philosophy. We offer specialty AA, BBA, and MBA degrees. And what I mean by specialty, when we started in 1959, a lot of our degrees didn't have traditional degree pursuits. Automotive marketing, fashion, hospitality, advertising. If you had a degree in those industries, you were probably hired from outside those industries. So that was our focus and remains our focus today. Very prescriptive curriculums, even our general education. So in our first 2 years, it's not an opportunity for our students where you need 16 hours of math. Here is 100 different courses that you can select from to fulfill those hours. We indicate the specific algebra, statistics, quantitative methods, etc. that they need to take. Very few electives built into our programs, and when there are electives, they're very prescriptive as well, okay? We follow, as I always work with my kids, I always share with my kids that my wife and I, we have a democratic dictatorship. We offer the choices and then they get to select one of those choices that we have offered, okay? So our curricular approach is very similar to that at Northwood University. We have been aligned with corporate, industry, and business for years and years and years. We have advisory boards in place for all of our degree programs. They've been in place for many, many years. When we design courses, add minors, majors, they're very involved in the process. So that's not an element that is new for us or something that we would have to put in place. Now what I want to talk about is the traditional degree pathway at Northwood University. And I started to smile when Judith was talking about traditional, non-traditional online delivery or whatever, because many of the things that, a few years ago we would have considered to be non-traditional are very traditional today. So the traditional degree pathway at Northwood University starts K through 12. We need to partner with local high schools, ISDs, etc., at the K through 12 level. We only offer business degrees. That's it. So we've already taken whatever the full higher education market is and said we're only going to operate in about 20 to 25% of that total market by offering those specialized degrees. So those partnerships have to start at the K through 12 level. Why is this important for us as we look at CBEs and this corporate approach? Well, why it's important is the first part all of you are doing. You have partnerships where you go in and deliver programming in the high schools, etc. What we're finding with our corporate partners, they want to get into the high schools, but they don't know how to do that. Do they have admissions professionals like we do? No, they don't. Do they have individuals that are working with the high school counselors? No, they don't. So that is a huge opportunity for industry, business, corporation that we in higher education can assist them and build these partnerships. I'll talk a little bit later when we get to the end, one of the partnerships we have with Toyota and how we've partnered at the K through 12 level. Next then, we have a few associate degrees at Northwood University, not as many as we had years ago. We have moved out of that market, and the reason why we've moved out of that market is our community college partners, in many cases, do a much more effective job in those technical and specialty areas than we would at Northwood University. Now, we still offer associate degrees in automotive, aftermarket, management, on the dealership side, not the technical side. For example, I know Eastfield College in the Dallas Community College District is partnered with Toyota and offer a T10 program on the mechanic side. That's not what we do in automotive. Our would be more the management, marketing, business side, so we would partner with those. But it's important, that's our traditional pathway model, whether it be an Associate of Arts or an Associate Applied Science degrees. As I said, this portion of the pathway, and why it's important to show this traditional pathway, remember I said one of the things is when we're talking with business and industry, and you may have the same thing happen, they want this acceleration to assist them, but they want it to be very traditional or a very prestigious, accredited, whatever term you want to use, degree there. So I think it's very important when you sit down with those individuals that you're able to show them that very traditional degree pathway and how everything funnels into that or is building off of that. One of our partners we have is the Bluegrass Community College system in Kentucky that we partner with Toyota on. We then have our four-year undergraduate, Bachelor of Business Administration. Now we're also offering some Bachelor of Science degrees. What's interesting here in the state of Texas, business degrees, when we went through with the coordinating board, I probably should mention also, we're Higher Learning Commission, regional accreditation, our system. Yet, as you know, operate here. Our campus here in Texas, the one that I lead, we have to, in essence, follow both. Even though there's a reciprocal agreement, all of you that work with the coordinating board knows they're going to follow SACS accreditation, and so for certain opportunities, you better be in alignment with that. So our 4 years degrees, and what we do here, combine the fundamentals then of specialty areas, general education, philosophy, theory, application, etc. One of the partnerships we have with some community colleges in the state of Michigan, playing off of this, is what we call 3+1. Where there's the potential for the learner to do 3 years of their work at the community college and the 4th year with us. Individuals will say, well, how can you do that? Well, the courses we select are courses that we feel, and our community college partner feels also, you're not going to get different answers to whether you're at a 2 or 4 public or private. The answer to an algebraic equation is no different at Northwood than it is at another institution, correct? Now, one may argue, maybe the older the learner is, or some of those elements might in, but we're looking at, much like you would in competency-based education, right? You're saying, here's the competencies, either you can master them at that level or you can't. We're not necessarily going to factor in all of those other learning elements, not to say that they don't, but we're focused on the competencies there. And then also we have MBA, Master of Science degrees as well. So this is our very traditional career pathway. Again, I can't overemphasize this enough. Why this is important is when I sit down with corporations and industries, just met with one on Monday, 260,000 employees worldwide. This is what they want to know first. They want to know that traditional, accredited, fundamental program that you have, that whatever you're doing beyond that builds off of. And again, our MBA then is designed to strategic, explain, manage, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, our NU educational philosophy, why is this important? As I first talked with Judith, probably a year ago this July or whatever, and had gotten in touch with Judith through our Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board contact, Kathy Mayer, I knew enough about CBE to be dangerous, maybe, okay? So I knew that I had to get with some professionals who were working very closely with it and just kind of, this is what I'm thinking. I may be way, way, way off base on this, but this is what I'm thinking, this is how we're thinking about approaching it. What are your thoughts? One of the first things that Judith mentioned to me, Kathy, and you'll hear this all the time, is you're going to have to get institutional buy-in. Your colleagues, staff, faculty, are going to have to be bought into this. I have found the most effective way to do that is if whatever you're promoting ties in with your institution vision philosophy already. When we started our online programming, I would say to our faculty, we're not looking at creating something separate from Northwood University. We want our online programming to be exactly the same thing that it would be in the classroom. We're just going to use some different tools and techniques to deliver that, right? But we don't want to be a different institution online than what we are in the classroom. It would be the same thing with CBE. We don't want to be a different institution when we're offering CBE than when we're offering anything else. So it fundamentally has to build off of who we are. So our educational philosophy at Northwood, quite simple. We believe that education is not something that one does to another, but instead it's something that two or more individuals do together, and that you need a number of educational partners to be successful for our learners. Beyond our staff and faculty, doesn't matter how outstanding our faculty and staff are, we'll need more partners than that. So that's our general educational philosophy. We take the education to the learner. At one time, I was the provost of our non-traditional programming. We operated in 8 different states: Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, California, New Mexico, Louisiana, Texas, Florida. Hopefully I got 8 there, or close to it. We were in 3 different regions of accreditation. I operated with 8 different state departments of education. Okay? This was in the height of 96 through 2003, online, all that. Well, you can imagine, just mention some of the things that Judith mentioned with the Texas Higher Ed Court, 1. And we're working with 8 in 3 regionals, and they're not quite sure about the opportunity. We also deliver internationally. Right now, we deliver at 2 physical locations in China. We're in Sri Lanka, Malaysia. So this idea, and that's why I put it this way, probably grammatically could have been much more effective, but literally it's take the education to the learner. Whatever, and put no more parameters on that. That doesn't mean just brick and mortar. It means take the education to the learner. As I said, 8 states and international. Partnerships. Now, when we went to these states or internationally, that we didn't go alone. We just didn't go in and open up a storefront or that. We went in with a partner. It had to be either the military. For example, here in the state of Texas, we're on the base in Fort Worth, NAS, delivering degree programs. Had started here in Dallas when the base was in Dallas. At one time we were in California. We were early on more military bases than the University of Maryland. We made a strategic decision though at one time that I might argue we probably should have made differently, but nonetheless, we went from very large presence there to about 5 military bases now. So that was one way. Another, community college partners to go in. Why do we do that? Instant credibility within the states if they're already accredited, right? And if they could make a case for us to be there by saying, boy, we don't have any other 4-year higher ed institution partner that will do this for us, that's why we need this institution to come in and partner with us. Also in-house programs, Toyota, GM, Chrysler, we started delivering first shift, second shift, third shift. In Toyota, we would videotape classes for the third shift when they got off to then watch during the first shift operations. So again, the idea being that all of our partnership, anywhere we went with a partner. The learner-bound elements always led us. Work, family, place, and time were the initial 4. So our approach always was with a physical location, we had to be within 30 minutes and or 30 miles of where our learner lived or worked. If we weren't, they probably weren't going to go that physical location. Now, that was before online delivering, all those opportunities. So that was our strategic draw there. So when we were in Detroit area, we had 4 locations. What we also found that very interesting, we could not get a student from Livonia, so let's say here it's in the Metroplex from Fort Worth, to go to our east location to enroll in the program unless we had a physical location there. But what we found, once we had the physical location, the student on their own might go to the east location if there was an instructor they wanted or it fit their scheduling or whatever. So the dynamics, once we got them in the program, changed. But if we didn't have that physical location, that theory of 30 minutes and or 30 miles to start with, we didn't get them in the program for the most part to start with. We've added recently, and Judith was talking about it, PACE as that learner, and certainly with CBE, key variable. Guiding principles for us then in education. Cover versus uncover. Share this with our faculty all the time. We don't have one outcome at Northwood University that says for the faculty member to cover the entire book. Not one. Not one. All of our outcomes are based on what our learner knows at the end of the course, right? So while what our faculty covers is important, I always tell them the most important thing is what are our students uncovering? I think Christine was talking about somebody beforehand. If every time we come to chapter 5 and the majority of our students don't get it, they aren't uncovering it, the check in the box isn't, well, yeah, but I covered it as a faculty member. You know, it was up to them. Now, I'm not saying there aren't, you know, the learner has a role in that. I'm not, you know, but the goal for us in our educational philosophy is it's based on what our students, our learners uncover. That's got to be our driver. Also, education versus training. Sometimes individual, well, what's the difference between training and isn't the same thing? And I always share the following. A good friend of mine shared this with me years ago, and I think it illustrates the point very effectively. You have an 8th grade, son, daughter, niece, nephew, etc. Do you want them having a course at school in sex training or sex education? Now, don't answer, okay? All right. But would those be 2 very different courses? Okay. So is there a difference between training and education? Yes, there is. Recognizing it, training is part of education, but they do have their unique differences. Part, again, of our educational philosophy. Okay, now, all this then led to our non-traditional degree pathway. So I showed that traditional degree pathway. Now this is how we got to our non-traditional. It's established and accepted with higher education traditional and non-traditional academic practices. So it's first based on transfer evaluations. When we talk about being transfer friendly at Northwood University, that doesn't mean we greet every transfer student with a smile and hello. We do that, but transfer friendly means we have 4-year degrees. Everyone who transfers to us, can we take what they've done and finish them within the 4-year time period? So if they've had 2.5 years of cumulative credit at other institutions, can we get them done in a 1.5 years? Now, not saying that always occurs, depending on what their major set, but to us, that's what being transfer friendly is we want to maximize the potential of everything they've done, especially if they've been at partner institutions, accredited institutions. Why would we not value that? Why would we not honor that? So we have that approach with our transfer credits. PLA, major element in this non-traditional pathway for us. And what I wanted to share with you was, this is something we go over with our students. Many of you may be doing this already. I can probably get you a copy of this if you would be interested. But as we sit down with a new student, this is discussion with new student about PLA. This is a handout. I mean, not rocket science or anything. Didn't need something major on it. But to determine the CANC, what we first talk to them about is how many transfer hours they have. Do they have any military experience? What professional accomplishments do they have? First step. Second, we then discuss the time frame and the cost of the PLA process. And I think Judith, Christine may mention that. It's not about the credits they may earn, right? It's about that process. So at Northwood, they must take a PLA class during their first semester at Northwood. So if you're going to receive PLA, you take that class the very first semester. It's about 6 to 8 months the process takes from when you start to you receive the award letter. So it doesn't just happen in a week or two. It's $425 for the 1 credit hour course. They receive 1 credit hour, which may or may not apply to their degree depending on what they're transferring in. It's pass or fail, the course. No credit, no letter grade issue. Our evaluation fee right now is $1,750, and it's paid after the credits are awarded. After. Credits are transcribed after the student meets our residency requirement. Why? Early on we didn't have that. We had some students who would come in and what? Get transcripted, get the hours. It only takes that once, maybe twice to happen, and you figure out, you know what, we probably need to make a change there. There's a syllabus for the course. The course is offered online as well as face-to-face, so all those elements. But that's some of the basics of our PLA. We follow the CALE guidelines and standards and rules. We started, in essence, our PLA process and that back in 1971. And that's when we really started competency-based education with correspondence courses. Right? You sent a textbook, 100 questions that you felt meant the outcomes. They took those and took a test afterwards. So as I'm fond of saying in higher education, as many things, what's that expression? Something old is new again, or whatever. We just add the technology or the new things to it. So that's the specifics for our PLA process, and I think that's important to share with you on how we're trying to work the CBE into it as well. The max award they could get from us is 30 credit hours is the max. That's a higher learning commission criteria that we work with. SACS and the coordinating board, it's 30, but it's a combination of AP credits, CLEPs, etc. So I think with SACS, the higher coordinating board, it's maybe like 14 or 16 hours of pure PLA that you could earn. All right, but the higher learning commission is 30. Yes?
Can you talk more about the course? So is the assessment designed specifically to the experience that the student is bringing? Do you have different assessments depending on the experience?
And I'll try and show this to you or share it with you. We have listed and done this over the year, all of the courses that can be petitioned for it. Those were all established by content experts in those courses, okay? And so as they go through the course, they're learning about, well, which courses may apply and how they would go through that process. So again, much as Judith was sharing, very basic, you're looking for the learning. You're not looking for, well, you've been a manager for 30 years. Because we all know that could have been a one-year management experience 30 times, right? May not be 30 years worth of management, rich and diverse management and all that. So I don't know if that answers, but that's how we approach it, okay? Okay. Very good question. Again, as we're going through this, please stop me if you have questions on anything. Dante's military, we factor those in to the pathway. CBE, we're working on that right now. How does that factor into our pathway? And this is the third one, which creates our third pathway, industry, corporate training and education, which is, we all know, huge. Great deal of money being spent out there. I think I read something the other day that 75% of all business and industry in the United States is learning some type of learning management system to deliver their training right now. And they've got major investment, and a lot of time the individuals delivering that training are you and I. I mean, they're credentialed individuals. What also led me to this, Toyota, the Georgetown, Kentucky plant that we work with, their educational center there at one time was SACS accredited. SACS accredited. Think about that. Think about if a major corporation or industry or whatever came to one of us and said, you know what, we want to be accredited, we want to hire you to take us through that process and then have accreditation. I think this is on the horizon, but I digress. So here then is our,
Can I ask you a question?
you sure can.
What about the MOOCs? What do you do about those?
We have to this point not had much opportunity with MOOCs. And I say that on the one hand, thinking that it's because we have our current process so detailed in that if it incorporate, it just flows right in, okay? Now, that would certainly be the positive, very high on how we do it approach, okay? I think the other might be that it just hasn't risen to that level yet. You know, a lot of statistics that I've seen is there's a lot of people who sign up for them but don't complete them per se, and do they have something to show or validate? And so I think what happens with the MOOCs in our case, as they work through the PLA process and get all the information, they may self-opt out of bringing that into the equation. You know, when they look at everything you have to have, they may say, well, you know what, I didn't complete that, so there's no certificate or something like that. And verification in our PLA process is certainly one of the key criteria. Okay, so you can see now, so this is our non-traditional degree pathway. We take all of those elements and factor those into that traditional model. Now, this is the one that led me to CBE, this third pathway, and why I think it can help us there. I'll use the auto industry for an example. The auto industry will take all the graduates we can produce. We can't produce enough undergraduates, 4-year MBA for the auto industry. But once they hire them, they will not send them back to us to complete their degrees. Many reasons. In a lot of cases, those that go to work in the dealership, the dealer will look and say, because of their hour and their structure, I can't afford to send them off. The other element that comes into play, more so, industry, once they hire the individuals, has a career focus, not a degree focus. So they want their employees to do parts and service how it needs to be done in their dealership. They're not interested in a general parts and service theory, philosophy. I own this dealership in wherever the Metroplex, this is what I need, so I need my person trained and educated this way. So I'm looking at this, we're the school of choice in the auto industry. There are over 17,000 dealerships. You know how many employees that is? Take all of our graduates, but won't send them back to us once they hire them. Huge market for us. And it's this right here. This right here. They're career focused more so than degree focused. And that gap is growing and growing, and there's more. As I said, group I just met with Monday, 260,000 employees. I mentioned their name, you would know them, saying the same thing to me. The gap between, years ago, when one of our graduates came out, the gap between what they knew and where the company wanted them was not that great or significant. It might have been some. Today, you sit down and talk with corporate industry executives, they'll say that gap gets greater and greater. For different reasons, but greater and greater. Also, industry has multiple degrees that come in. So it's not just business degrees. We have a partnership with the Dow Chemical Company, 45,000 employees worldwide. They have a Future Leaders program. Their top 300 leaders throughout the world came to us, wanted a specific MBA program designed for them. Now, the individuals come to this program, many of them had PhDs already, but what were they in? Chemistry, physics, etc. Out there. But if they're going to be running there, they needed that business background. Well, again, how do they bring all of these different individuals together in one degree and not necessarily spend 2 years catching up on prereqs and those types of things? So again, it's that idea of they're career focused more so than degree focused. Industry more and more is driven by pace with their individuals at times. So what Judith was sharing, that flip-flop, that's occurring within business and industry as well. So this is what we've been working on at Northwood. I've been focused on this idea of a corporate industry degree pathway. Same thing, it starts at the K through 12 level with the workforce. I look at, been able to follow very closely Dallas Community College District, Tarrant Community College District, some of those partnerships, new chancellor, I know Dr. May with Dallas Community College District looking at that workforce development. A lot of it is focused on what? K through 12. And I've always said this. In higher ed, we sit back and wait for another educational organization entity to develop our opportunity, right? That's crazy. That is crazy. It's like when I was coaching a high school coach. I would always talk with my junior high coaches. I coach volleyball. And a lot of times, the taller individuals in junior high were less coordinated, athletic. What would happen a lot of times? They would cut them. Well, by the time you get to high school, here I'm coaching volleyball. I got all these 5'5", okay? Very athletic, very coordinated, okay? But blocking at the net or hit, I need those 6. So I would always talk with my junior high coach. You can't, I would tell them, you're picking my varsity team. They would say, well, no, I'm not. I would say, yes, you would. They said, well, how? I said, any kids you caught probably aren't going to try out the next year, right? They'll be all done with volleyball. They'll go to something else. So we need to work together in order to get that group of that up. So same kind of approach we try to use there. So same thing, corporate pathway model over starting K through 12. Also what's unique about this is many times these might be individuals who graduate out of high school, don't go into a traditional 2 or 4 year degree pursuit. They might have graduated from some of our technical schools or had technical programs. What about these young people who are graduating with 2-year degrees from high school in some of these dual credit programs that are going to go directly into industry corporate market? And so what happens is there is training and education already going on. So to cut right to the chase, this is what I've been focused on. How do we take that training and education that they're already doing and get it converted to academic credit? I think CBE is one of the opportunities to do that. Let me give you an example again from the auto industry. There's the NADA, which represents the auto dealers. Over 16,000 auto dealers belong to that. They have the NADA Dealership Academy. They run 5 courses: finance and insurance, parts and service, the things you would do in a dealership. But it's specifically designed that if Bill comes to it, I'm going to prepare Bill for the dealership he's working at specifically. That's what I want him to go away knowing. That's why I'm sending them there. These dealerships will send as many employees as they can. It's not inexpensive. It's $7,000 a year. That's not counting their room, their travel, and all of those things. Yet they won't send them to us for the degree. Now, what we're trying to do, and we're using the PLA process here. So we take that parts and service seminar over a year that they're doing with NADA. How close is that to our parts and service course? Is it 50%, 70, 80%? So our PLA professionals are evaluating those courses right now to determine that. And what I'm thinking then is, can we use CBE to close that gap? of 20%, 30%, whatever it might be. So we don't have them take the whole course all over again, right? We just have them take the portion that might not have been covered in the Dealer Academy. When you talk about CBE financing, the startups, as Judith hit on, boy, depending on where you want to start. But wonder if we go to NADA and say, okay, you're charging $7,000. Wonder if we charge $10,000. At the end, not only do they get the certificate, but they also walk away with 15 hours towards a degree at Northwood University. Has the return on investment just increased for the dealer that has sent them there? Not only have they got the certificate in the specific dealership, I've added to that with credits towards the degree. That's the potential for us then to bring them into our degree program, right? Because right now they would walk away with maybe a CEU. Well, what does a CEU mean? Other than to keep maybe your CPA, or, you know, there's some industries where you need some of those, but for the most part, it doesn't bring them into degrees. So that's the thought process, and that's what I first met with Judith, and I was like, you think I'm crazy on this? You know, am I way off base? How do we close that? Also, it would be on pace. The learner could do it, their own. Dealership by dealership. Talk about scalable for us. 16,000 dealerships. Let's say each dealership just has 15 employees, right? Look at the potential market for us building on in that return on investment. Well, we're also then working at, and I'll show you this specifically too, academic certificate programs. I think you were talking about, or asked a question about certifications and all that. This is another opportunity. We've started this with, oh, got her going all over, I'm sorry. With certifications in the industry as well. So let me show you what we're looking at here. With Toyota, we're talking about creating 3 academic certificate programs for them. AA level, BBA level, master's degree. That when they take them, now they have to already do this at Toyota, and they focus on lean operations, lean manufacturing. What would we bring to the table? Lean management, because that's what we do. We're not going to bring the lean manufacturing. We would partner with Bluegrass Community College in Kentucky for that, or if we were here in the area, institutions here. But they work, they get their certification, but same thing, they're getting academic credit. So you make sure it's transferable or equates to a course. And then we do that at each level. Because again, what did I say? Industry's dealing with multiple degrees, right? So not every one of their employees needs an associate or a bachelor's. It may be at the graduate level. So for us to truly build in and maximize the market, we've got to have the certificate programs at all levels. So we're working on a master's with Toyota right now, lean management, where there would be 5 specific academic certificate programs built that would also equate to 1 year of the master's degree. Now, will every one of those students come to us for a degree? Not necessarily. But have we increased the potential by creating this type of partnership, career and degree pathway? We certainly have. And if we can tie in building on top, we also generate that potential revenue as well. So in the end, I think these degree and career pathway models can be used seamlessly across many industries and with many corporate partners. You know, I mean, let's face it, what I have up there, there's nothing unique or special about it. It's stuff we all do. It's just how I brought it together for us. You may bring it together a little differently, but it's whatever those elements are for you. 2, our pathway, it's got all the accepted academic practices. And where that's important, when we were in Washington, D.C. meeting with Toyota's chief executives or NADA, or that, they want to see all the traditional because they don't want, unfortunately, some of these other opportunities that have occurred, partnering with other institutions to occur. A focus on return on investment, keep hitting this. For business and industry, much like us, what's the return on our investment? They're already spending hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of dollars on training and education. And it's quality, it's very good. If we could add 5, 10, 15% of it and it adds more return on investment, they're interested in that. Got to talk their language. It's a looping and iterative pathway. So with those 3, you can Doesn't matter. I could start out traditional. I go into the workforce. I come back later, finish up. I start at a community college. I mean, a variety of ways to get individuals into those pathways. And with us, again, only doing business, we've already said we're only going to be in about 20-25% of the market. So we got to make sure there's a variety of ways for them to loop back into us. Pathways driven by academic integrity. As I said, we use CALE, we use all the standards. CBE, I'm using Judith, the CBE Institute, you know. I mean, we right there, somebody comes to me, well, what's up? Well, I know, Judith, I went to Judith, and you know, this is what we're working on right here in the CBE Institute. Continuous opportunity for new products and product development. A lot of times for us in higher ed, part of our opportunity is we're thinking outside of what we're doing already. This allows us to think outside of what we are currently doing. Okay, let me quickly show you then a couple current partnerships. Now I'm sorry for this is our one with Toyota. Okay, so when you work with industry or our experience on it, they bring everything into the mix, okay? So let me kind of walk through. So you can see, we've been slowly working with them. Here it starts at K through 12. How many of you heard Project Lead the Way? That organization? That's who Toyota is partnered with to assist them in the K through 12 opportunity. This FAME group, in essence, think of an athletic team going out and recruiting high school seniors to come and play on their team. That's what they do in this FAME. They've got 150 different businesses, part of it, that will go out and recruit in the STEM areas to get in this program and scholarship those students from high school. So what they're saying at Toyota and some of these others, why are we going to wait for the educational system to determine who we should get? We're going to be active participants in that, and we're going to start the K through 12 process. This then is the Advanced Manufacturing Technician Program. So my colleagues at Eastfield, that if they're still in the room or older ones, they might step out. This is what that's based on. And you can see they have specifically built Northwood into their business route. They also have an engineering, and they also have a technician. You can see with both of them, where do both of them feed back into? They feed back into the Northwood degree programs because they're based on lean and lean manufacturing. And you look up lean, you'll see Toyota right after that. Okay? Again, this isn't rocket science, people. And it's right there for us if we can just bridge that gap. If we can just bridge the gap, what's already occurring, we don't have to create it. It's already there. Another one that we have, and I think both of these are in the PowerPoint I sent you too, right? Okay. Now, the only thing is, I don't want to see this, you know, in 6 months, another school out here, it's the Toyota one, you just change the names, all right? I mean, use a little creativity, okay, if you do that. But this is our one with General Motors. And what's happened here, you can see we're creating specific GM academic programs to feed into that. So, that's what I'm thinking about, okay? And working towards. And that's what we're doing at Northwood right now. We're trying to do. We just had a team of 3 people in Utah, Western Governors. Had a grant through, I think the Gates Foundation, wasn't that, Judith? Or what? However they funded that, but invited. So they allowed 3 of our colleagues to come there and in essence look under the hood. Now they approach it much differently than what I'm talking about here, but it's some of the same principles, right? I also got to believe for all of us, we're going to have business and industry partners, I think, financially would partner with us if we can make that case how we bring it together. Eventually that ties into full degrees, but I said, a little different approach from the corporate level. Questions?
Have you tried anything with IBM?
With who?
IBM.
Not IBM specifically, no. No. So today that one's open to you.
Thank you.
We haven't done a lot on the computer science or MIS. You know, Georgia Tech with Udacity, and is that Judith, the state of Georgia? I know they present at TAP, has a $7,000 or $7,500 master's degree in MIS-CIM. But I tell you, the corporations, industries that I've talked to about working with your traditional 4-year institutions, they have the experience once, they're not interested in doing it again. Because a lot of times what happens with those institutions, what they're saying is, This is what we do. You got to fit into it. You can't approach it this way. What you have to do with corporate, you got to say, you tell us what you need. Mike, tell me what you need. Now it's my opportunity to see if I can deliver what you need. That's how you have to approach these, from my perspective. Other questions? Just a whole bunch of gobbledygook, and you're like, okay, hey, good luck, you know, chasing windmills.
You know I'm going to bring this, sorry.
Is it Kathleen?
It is.
Okay, Kathleen.
And I'm with the community college system.
Okay. And we love to partner with community college systems too.
And we love it.
So, okay.
So I'm thinking in terms of return of investment
from
your perspective. If you're tailoring each of these various, it's like you're thinly slicing the pie.
But this, remember, look at, what do we tailor them back into? What we already do. So it's not creating what we already do, it's how do we take what they've done and work that into what we do. So they've had a course in, let's just use the lean part, okay, that had Six Sigma in it. Those are some of the fundamental, it's not going to be any different in a course that we teach, and it'll be there. Well, how close of that would that be to Lean 101? It might not be the full course, or it might be everything there, but because it wasn't delivered by a credentialed individual, you can't do that. So in some cases, we've talked about co-branding, where we've said, you know what? It's all here. We either need to put you on our all the credentialing, or have some of our faculty members come in, work with you, and co-brand it. So again, it's just that. I think the premise you have to have is what they have there is quality. It's very good. How do you bridge the gap to what you have already? Because I agree, if you're going to run out new programs, then yeah, our size.